Hi, I'm Oliver Pinniger, the best marketing intern Three Will has ever had, and this is episode 149 of Two Bald Brothers and a Microphone podcast, where we talk about the people, process, and technology to work together better inside enterprises. This episode was recorded on February 1st, 2018. In this episode, Danny and Tommy talk with Jeff Meyer about implementing the four disciplines of execution. They discuss the importance of the customer experience and how setting different levels of goals can be beneficial. Enjoy this episode and thanks for listening.
Hello and welcome. This is the Two Bald Brothers and a Microphone podcast, and I am here with the other bald brother, Tommy Ryan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Good morning.
Good morning. And we also have Jeff Meyer here. How are you doing, Jeff?
Good morning. It's great to be here.
Excellent.
Two bald guys in a microphone. I hope there's no follicle bullying going on.
No, there won't.
But I do have a little bit of hair. Y'all know you can't see
midway
me.
through, in that closet behind you, there's a razor, and midway through this thing, we're
shave
going to
my
take your hair
hair.
off, okay?
That sounds like fun.
We can see. It could
I'm
be.
glad I'm here.
It could be three bald bros and a microphone. We can change it around.
Okay.
Who knows?
I'm in.
All right. So we're just catching. We've known Jeff for years. We're back from the Extreme Logic days of things. And for folks who don't know, Extreme Logic was a great company where you just met a lot of folks who. It was just a great part of my career. It was great what Wayne was doing and Keith and everybody over there. And man, there's numerous folks from Three Will or at Three Will or from Extreme Logic. The same thing with InfoScience / New Signature. There's a lot of people from that company. It was just a great place to be. And so when you left, so we had similar paths, right? We around the same time you started off InfoScience and we started off Three Will. You focused more on the infrastructure side of things, and we are more on the app dev side of things.
Which made us wonderful partners.
It did
over the last 15 years.
It did,
in my opinion.
It really did. I mean, it was nice to have someone who focused in on a certain area and wasn't so broad. And we did the same thing, so it was really kind of cool just going back and forth and going into sales calls with each other, and we complement. I think, and we're not very salesy, so
true.
we like to solve problems, and I think people appreciated that. So I think we had the same style going into things. So we recently caught up. Yeah, I mean, InfoScience was sold.
Yes, it was
to
acquired in late 2015.
In 2015.
And myself and my two co-founders were pretty excited about that transaction when it occurred. And they were both former Extreme Logic guys as well, too. Mark Pierce and Phil Bartholomew.
Excellent. And then you were there for a while, and then you've left.
I have completed my commitment.
Completed your commitment.
So we've finished transition and integration and
nice.
And it's time for the next challenge.
It's exciting, huh?
It is.
So I wanted to talk with you about, I guess through our conversations, and you did listen to the podcast. Thank you.
I did.
The 4DX, and wanted to talk through and actually just learn from you a little bit. Since we're on the early stages of this journey, what were some of the things that you learned as you were implementing it, rolling it out? And sounds like you did it for 2 to 3 years, and would just love to hear from you.
Up until we were acquired.
Okay, up until you were acquired.
And then the new signature organization is looking to roll it back out across the entire organization today.
Nice.
So at the time, we were pretty wrapped up in integration and transition, and so we decided to kind of park that. And the new signature wanted to evaluate it, and they are going to implement it too.
Nice.
I'm a huge fan of the four disciplines of execution. I'll back up a little bit and tell you how we discovered it. And I was so excited to see that you guys are considering it as well.
We're a little slow. We're about 4 years behind everything you do, okay?
Careful.
Give us this.
That's what it is. You're very cautious, and nothing wrong with that. That's why you're still in business. So I attended the Microsoft Worldwide Partner Conference. I believe it was in 2014, and Chris McChesney, one of the co-authors of the book was presenting at one of the sessions. And actually, I didn't have this session targeted as one that I had planned to attend. It's just that I ended up at a point in the day where I didn't have any other meetings and I didn't have a session that I identified. So I just quick scanned the list and, oh, this looks interesting, and dropped in. And I tell you, it just changed the way I think about how we do business. It was a really compelling presentation. I really enjoyed it. Chris is a great presenter. Turns out he lives here in the Atlanta area.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and he goes to church with one of my business partners, Mark Pierce. And so we got to meet him and have a chat and learn more about how they came up with the principles of execution. And I think one of the things that really hit me as something that excited me about it and said we should consider this in our own firm was that he said, lots of MBAs and PhDs go to business school and they learn all about strategy, planning and development of strategies and all that. Nobody talks about execution. And execution is what really makes a difference in getting things done.
Yep.
So I was very attracted to that. So our organization, we handed out the books to a lot of the folks on our team. People read it. We got to talking about it, and we decided to bring in the Covey organization and help us get it off the ground.
Nice.
Organization.
Did they do some training at first, or what was it? Did they have a consultant that was? What did that look like?
Yeah, the consultant came in, and the initial thing was to meet with the executives of the firm and try to understand what kind of value we hope to receive by, embarking on this journey. So they kind of helped us understand how we might get better value from it and really be more thoughtful in our approach to implementing it before we just dive in. So we did that, and it's kind of a 2-day exercise where you all sit around in a room together and you talk about different things going on in your business and what might be important to you and those kinds of things. I think you guys are probably of a similar mindset that to do well in business, you need to relentlessly try to improve. Whether it's new offerings for your clients or a personal growth initiative that I want to be a better public speaker or I want to be better at technology if I'm a consultant. There's a variety of things, and I think those people that relentlessly pursue that are real professionals that really have an opportunity to do something and make a difference. And a lot of this 40X is kind of based on that same mindset.
Okay.
And it creates a forum where your entire organization can jump on the bandwagon of relentlessly improving what they do. And so that's a wonderful thing.
Awesome.
So once we went through the couple of days of consulting, we then charted out, kind of a rollout approach and education. And that's where we brought the team in and just talked about the overall concepts, saw examples, heard stories about what other companies have done with it, and kind of wanted to kind of rev people's juices up about it and get them thinking about how they might adopt it, because it's a very team-based approach and almost individual approach as to what would you like to do, what kind of a goal do you want to put in play, and then go out and achieve it.
What was the process? Because we're going through it, and I'm asking this quite selfishly, because we've been going through talking about what the overall company WIG is, and have been processing things. And when we were preparing for this, you had mentioned you sort of did a theme for the year. Each year, you had sort of an overarching theme, and you said the first year was about customer experience.
Customer
was that the first?
experience.
Okay.
Some people might call it quality.
Okay.
But what we decided was that, by working with our firm and for science, we wanted anyone and everyone to have a good experience with us, whether that be an actual client, whether it be a prospect that's just evaluating us, whether it be one of our partner organizations that, wants to go to market with us. You folks included, as we were partners through the years.
Yes.
So what is it like to interact with our firm, and is it a good experience? And how can we determine whether that's true or not, and how can we measure that, were things that we decided would
And
be.
did you use Net Promoter Score the first year?
We did.
Okay. Then did you just have by this, it's X to Y by this date. So you had a certain score that you were trying to get to by a certain date.
That's correct. And I don't remember the numbers off the top
that's
of
fine.
my
I won't
head,
ask
but
you.
But I want to say it was something like a 70 or 75 Net Promoter Score was what we were shooting for that first year.
By the end of the year is what you were shooting for.
And of course you don't know yet where you're starting from how steep of a climb is that, or is that not too bad? And we were pleased to get a 65 score, I think, right out of the chute on the first test. So we were like, oh, this is going to be, something achievable.
Yeah.
Well, it was harder than we thought, and that was what was really fun.
We have a perfect score because I only ask happy customers.
Selective polling is something that works well. Yes.
Yeah. Selective polling, it's amazing. You can make the numbers look like anything. But I'm sorry, I joke.
No, I know.
But
that's funny.
But it's so funny when you interact with some customer services organizations and you've had a bad experience and they say, hold on the line to do this survey, and then at the end of the call it just blanks to nobody asks you any questions because you had a bad experience. So you can see them what they do. So with this, let's dive into that a little bit. So it was about customer experience, and then did you for the individual, do you had like department wigs and then wigs for the different practice areas, or how did you break that out? What did that look like?
Our firm probably was organized pretty similar to yours in that we had practice areas and practice leads based on certain technologies that they were focused on. But we had every part of the organization participate, from sales to HR to finance, marketing. Obviously, their wigs were very different across groups. A lot of the practices maybe were somewhat similar in delivery, but sales had an initiative to grow repeat business. Initially. So they started measuring that and trying.
We don't want repeat business around here.
And so they kind of came up with some things around, questions that they would want to have a dialogue with the client as they were finishing up a project and kind of plant the seeds for the next one, or maybe take a more strategic, perspective in their conversation with the client, so that they're trying to get a more long-term view of where the client's business is heading, so that they can then think about, what are ways we could help them get there, versus just being transactional. So that was kind of neat. I know the accounting department and finance came up with one of their biggest challenges that they think affects the customer experience was our invoicing. Did it arrive timely? Was it correct when it arrived? Was it concise? Many clients wanted customized formatting that made it go through their purchasing organizations smoother. Was that accounted for and accomplished? And those kinds of things. So they went about on a project initially to go and be sure that they were doing those kinds of things and asking those questions up front versus just assuming, that the standard invoice would be okay. And it greatly increased their interaction with our clients, which turned out to have a great side benefit that we didn't even see in that they had relationships then with people in purchasing and finance and stuff at our clients. So they could just pick up the phone and call each other now that they knew each other. So relationships got built that we didn't see coming.
How often did you do the accountability piece of this, where you were looking at, was it weekly or was it monthly, or how did you, how we get part of the disciplines is, one is have a scoreboard and then the other one is making sure you're checking back in on this. Was this something that the different teams got together? What did that look like, I guess?
Every team built scoreboards, actual physical fun scoreboards with themes and characters and lots of fun things. I know the sales team had the Wizard of Oz as their.
I think we went over to you.
You may have.
I think I saw this at your office.
And I know they had a picture of me, Mark, and Phil as Munchkins, which was great. Follow the yellow brick road. So it was a journey to more repeat business. It was really fun. And different teams came up with wildly creative ideas. We had a little bit of a challenge there in translating that to being more of a virtual organization, because we were scattered across 6 states in the Southeast. But we took pictures of the boards and posted them, created a site in SharePoint where we could share that and keep it up to date and those kinds of things. It was great for folks that work together in a local office, though, to be able to have that scoreboard right there and walk by it every day as a reminder. They did 15-minute WIG meetings. We were very strict about no more than 15 minutes. Get in, take care of business, have your conversation, share the information with each other, ask for input and feedback if you're struggling, and then close out the meeting and agree to meet next week. We use the online my40x.com provided by the Covey organization. We found that to be very useful because it held people accountable. They needed to go in there every week and update their activities. If you've made a commitment, that you're going to call every client before you send out an invoice, or, if you're in a practice, one of the practices was updating their statement of work templates is what they decided to improve quality. Each person had a section of the statement of work that they were working on, so they needed to
Nice.
put their commitment in each week that they had accomplished what they'd set out to do. Or not. Sometimes things happen.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But you put that in and note it.
One of the things I think Tommy and I really like about this, which is the whirlwind is there. It's that you have to do your day-to-day things. You have to take care of those things. But then this is sort of like it is a focus. It's sort of like, what do we, as an entire company, what do we want to do and focus in on for this year and make sure we're successful at. And I like it because it's not like drop everything. It's not you still have to do your day job, but here's some additional focus that we're going to have for this year.
Yeah, we would have monthly meetings, all hands meetings, we called them, and then each group would give a brief update of what their score was, where they were. Any activities that just needed to be covered broadly, we would talk about that. So it really got people interacting and competing with each other to do better. And you talk about the whirlwind. I think one of the most valuable things that I took from 40X as we really started to make it a part of our everyday lives was I did annual planning. Our executive team did annual planning. Sometimes we did quarterly updates, to the plan as we moved through the year. But we always had 10 to 20 goals that we wanted to try to do. And in the 4 disciplines of execution, it states clearly if you have 20 things you want to try to do, you will probably achieve 0 of them, or maybe 1 at best. But if you say, I only have 1 thing I want to do, and I'm not going to do anything else until I get it done, it changes your whole perspective. And I think, they use the analogy in the training, I remember, of you got a soccer field and only one person is allowed on the field at a time. One problem you're trying to solve. So you kick that all the way down into the goal before another player can come off the bench and come out there onto the field. And it puts your full attention on making a difference. And that was hugely valuable. I think many people in the organization had a similar thing, even as an individual. I got 20 certifications I want to do this year to be a better technician. And, or maybe it's only 4, but still, it's a challenge. It's a lot of studying, a lot of work. And if they just said, I'm just going to do this quarter, X to Y by when, they had much more success.
One of the things that Tommy and I have gone through a couple of times, and a part of it is for me just to try to digest it. And if I can explain it to somebody else, I then understand it. And so a lot of I try to learn something and then explain it. And if I can do that, then I feel like at least I've apprehended at a certain level what it means. And for me, the lead measures versus the lag measures has been an important part of this, because as we're looking at this, the WIG is a lag measure, and then we're looking at what lead measures would impact that. A lot of what I've been trying to coach the team around is everybody's used to talking about all these metrics, which are lag measures, but you focus in on the lead measures. Like, you can't magically just make the sales go up. It's like, what are you doing to make that go up? And it was funny this past year. I think there were in a lot of ways, my marketing, I was trying to set up for this year, which is I had a marketing dashboard, which was just in Excel, and it had all of my objectives for the year. So I said I was going to do 10 blog posts per month, and it had all the different. I was going to send out a monthly email every month. And then, sorry, let me hit my head here. How often am I doing that? And it just had other things like that, because I said that was my objective for the year. And then what I would do is at the company meeting is Tommy would just pull up the spreadsheet. We'd go through, and either I did it or I didn't do it. And we go through and we look at some different things. And what I was trying to do was trying to hit what my lead measures were and what I was focusing in on. And one of the things that I'm trying to make sure that the team understands, because it's difficult to get at first, is what are the lead measures? What are the things that you're doing? What can you do right now? And so like for this year, I'm thinking that, blog posts. I can sit down today and write a blog post. And I've seen that a lot of our marketing leads comes from our content marketing. And so that is something, having the whole idea of it's influenceable and I can do it is important, but it's difficult because we're so used to talking about lag measures that to change the mindset of, well, what is it that you do that will, and I think people are a little fearful of choosing the wrong lead measure because you don't know if it's going to impact that lag measure. And I don't know if I can put all my chips on if I do this, it's going to really have an impact on this. And then telling the team, like, you can change, you're not set in stone. We can change this over time, but you have to decide on something that you're measuring as a lead measure. What was that whole was that something that they covered in the training? And then how did the team get to the lead measure?
They did cover it in the training, but we didn't come out of the training understanding it fully. I'll be totally transparent. And it's a little bit of hit or miss and experimentation and dive in, try it. But then the dialogue helps correct it if it's not going to make a difference. Or you can clearly see, as you start to roll it out, that that's nice, but it's not going to change it. So we assigned, I guess you would call it an evangelist or a coach in our organization, who met with each of the teams at a minimum monthly, sometimes more often, and also sat in on a lot of the week calls to just kind of be sure people were grasping it, answer questions and things like that. And this person actually ended up being a great coach then too for kind of adjusting some of those things that people had set up that aren't going to make a difference in the long run as we went. And some of it is like we tried it and we started doing it and we realized it and it's like, okay, let's go back. Sometimes team members themselves say, wait a minute, I think I was close, but I missed it. And I'm just going to move it over a little bit to the right, and it looks like that'll do better. And so that's what happened. So we definitely got better as we went. But the key thing is just dive in and try it. And the beauty of the program too, I think, is that it leaves it up to your team members to make those decisions and think about this very carefully. And I was very pleased that they had so many great ideas because they were right there in the field doing that job every day. Stuff that I didn't realize maybe was a little out of whack or would make a big difference. So their input was probably much higher quality than I could have ever done as an executive.
It felt good, I'm sure.
Yeah, it really did. And I think it makes your team feel really good because they have control and
what
authority.
Did pushback look like? Did you have any push? Was this like, Jeff's read some, he's met some guy and now he's going to come back and try to throw this stuff, and then next year he's going to read some other book.
He'll meet a different guy, read a different book. Or he'll talk to Tommy. There was a detractor in every team. I mean, it's just a percentage. It's like a bell curve, right? You got your adopters that are ahead of the curve. You got a lot of people kind of moving along with it, and maybe some begrudgingly, but they're still doing it. And you got one in every team who says, I just don't know if I have time. I'm not sure it's going to make a difference, or like you said, fear that, this is just another one of those things, and they come and go in every organization. But over time, I'd say many of those detractors came around because they saw it was making a difference, and sometimes it was even just that it was making their job easier to do and more fun. So I think too that it gives people that opportunity to kind of find their way towards it versus just be forced. When it's only a 15-minute commitment a week, you're not asking for much. You're really not. Time out of your schedule.
One of the things we were when looking at like the overall company WIG is, and I don't know if we're not looking at this the right way or what it is, but like Tommy and I, want to have something that's that gets people out of bed, that you're excited about. And I don't know whether the company, like, how does this fold into who we are as an organization? And is that at a higher level? The company WIG is more about execution. Just trying to fit this into how can we make this a meaningful goal that motivates people, that they get excited about?
Yeah, because what I'm hearing is you created a theme as a company, and each of these departments came up with their WIG, and then probably their lead measures to influence that WIG. So you didn't have one central company WIG. You had a theme that says, okay, what can you do to influence that theme in a positive way?
But the company WIG was the Net Promoter Score, right?
The Net Promoter Score, which was a measure of are you having a good experience with our organization, in our opinion. Right. So that was what we did.
And that was, you had one company, that was the one company WIG.
For the first year.
Yeah.
To your question, if I understand it correctly, I think that one of the differences of this type of a process to go through compared to most and other things that you hear about improving quality maybe, was that it's so simple to execute just the program. Because you talk about having lots and lots of goals or lots of different ways that you can make a difference in your organization. You mentioned blog posts as an example for yourself, and that you want to do them in a timely fashion, or a monthly newsletter, or something like that. Well, if you only have one player on the field, you're just reminding yourself every single day of the same thing until you finally master it and retire it. Because you go, I've got that one figured out. I do that now. It's actually a habit. And so that's really simple. That's not complex, and that's not all that time consuming. It'd be like, we were joking before we started the cast about being forgetful, and our wives reminding us sometimes that we're forgetful. So if I just woke up every single day and said, today I'm going to try to remember everything. I don't know if I'm capable of that, but but if I tried and just said every day, this is my goal, then maybe at some point I might get a little better. And then I would retire that and move on to some other quality that I'd like to improve upon.
So it sounds like it's a practice to form habits, which is a very big thing in the kind of the Covey mindset, and that the practices that you establish, you don't throw those away as you onboard new habits. So we have like utilization. We're a master about how do we track that and manage to that. But it doesn't inspire us.
No, it doesn't anybody.
But it's a habit and a practice that you don't want to throw that away.
It's fundamental to your business.
It's fundamental. So how do you add the layers of new and improved habits that some of them might be displaced, older habits, but some of them you want to keep because those are good habits to have in place.
So you're back to your lag measures and lead measures with the example of utilization. I think of, okay, it's important to our business. We talk about it a lot in our organizations. But how can a consultant make a difference? Well, if he just wakes up every day and says, I'm working on a project at this client, I don't necessarily have total control over my utilization here, other than I'm assigned to this and I've got this work to do and it's estimated to take this many hours. But what if I went every client I went to, and every day that I went to a client and worked with them, thought about, what could I do to find more work here for our team? That would overall then influence utilization for your organization, right?
And I think
one of our teams came up with that as one of the things, and it kind of fed right into the sales organization's thing of how can we increase our repeat business. They were doing it by saying, every time I talk to a client, I'm going to ask these 3 questions. They came up with some questions, and they thought that would lead to maybe a possible discussion, which might lead to future business, or at least I would better understand this client's goals. And if a consultant adopted a similar type of thing, they might think about, hey, I read something the other day about this new technology coming out. Is this something you think that your business might use? I'm interested in learning about it myself, and just get a dialogue going, and that could lead maybe to some work for you guys down the road.
For us, we use what are called product backlogs, and it sort of has the queue of things that the customer wants to do, and we break it off into 2-week sprints typically. And one of the things I think Tommy was implementing, or has focused in on this in the past, which is backlog growth. So as you go into a project, customer wants to do these 20 things, but as you go along, the customer will ask for, I want this, I want this, I want this, and that's shown as backlog growth. So those are opportunities that you might not get to it in the next sprint or in this next phase, But once we're done, we could come back to that backlog and say, here's where we can go from here, guys. You want to go after this.
Yeah, and the beauty of what we do is our customer is solving a problem and purchasing so many story points. And the goal of Agile is to work on the most important things every sprint cycle. So if there are better ideas, bring in those better ideas, and we'll do those, and we won't contractually go change things with you and go through this whole negotiation every time you have a new idea. No, we'll implement that new idea, and then what you have left over, maybe that's another project. Maybe you want to do that next. And so it's not, in typical kind of waterfall projects, you're protecting scope. You want to say, we don't want to have scope creep because that's dangerous in a project. Well, we want scope creep, but it's managed scope creep in a way that we're doing something better for you because you're letting those ideas flow, and we create a mechanism for those ideas to flow. And I think that feeds into a lot of things like that relationship. You're wanting to do something better for the client. You don't want to just do what they said initially. Yeah. You want to have this experience that we understand you better. You've got better ideas because you're seeing what we're building, and let's make it even better than we first envisioned. And that's very powerful with the customer, and it's not salesy.
Yeah, and in the end, you've achieved a goal of deepening your relationship. And strengthening it, and you're working as partners with your customer, not as a vendor. And
it's a very
that drives utilization for you.
Then, you want that to be natural. If you're doing the right thing, that's going to flow out.
But it's not forced.
And people need. There's an aspect of it where the tension is released from the room. If a client says, "I want to go do this," and they're captured somewhere, at least they've been heard, and it's there, and they can now control it. So a lot of like when you go our homepages, where we want clients to feel like they are in control of what's going on, and a part of this just feeds into that. They listen to what I wanted to do. We're not able to do it in this sprint because of the structure of things, but if I wanted to this next sprint, I can focus in on this. We could probably talk for hours about this. One last thing before we wrap up. What was it like in the second year? Did you pick what was the rollover, and was there any impact to the customer service numbers in the second year, or did you stop focusing on? How does that work as you start? I'm thinking already about the next year. Sort of, how does that work as you start to pick a new theme?
We never retired the Net Promoter Score concept. Okay. We adopted it, right? So it was new to us, and then we retired it from the perspective of it's a habit. So we just kept that going and watched it and paid attention to it. We changed our overall goal to looking at bottom line and more of an internal focus the second year, and focused on how can we be sure that what we're doing is profitable and that we don't have errors and rework and things like that. It tied to quality from the year before, but it was a little more internally focused. But all the things from the first year stayed. And some people's wigs as individuals might still tie to some of those things from the prior year because there was still work that could be done, that relentless improvement that I talked about earlier. But then the company's overall goal that we were trying to measure was, let's look at, increasing our profitability this year. So we did that in the second year.
This was a great conversation. Thank you for doing this.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's great to catch up with you guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody. If you're still listening now, God bless you. And you are a committed person. And thank you for taking the time to listen to this. Hopefully, it was interesting. I think other small business owners, why wouldn't they want to listen to this? Because this has so much to do with. And I think it has to do with enabling your employees. Like it's not a command and control. It's we're setting out. I think as a leader, you're setting out what's our focus for this year, but then we're hiring smart people. We're hiring competent people to come in and don't check your brain in at home. Bring it with you at work. And how can you do this and think about what you're doing? And I just like the structure that this provides for doing something.
If you're a small business owner, I think one of the things that's very attractive about the 4 disciplines of execution is that it maps to any size business. Yeah. You read some of these books and you think, oh gosh, that's only for big companies. This one translates well because it boils right down to the individual and how can they make a difference.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks, Jeff, for taking the time to do this. Thank you, Tommy. And thank you, everybody, for listening, and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.